My name is Richard Stock. I'm a professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering. I'm also president of the Faculty Union. Thank you. Peter Buckley and I met with Jamshed in the summer, and one of the things he expressed to us was his concern about the finances. And what I told him was precisely what's being demonstrated by the previous presentation, that in order to be able to have the support of a community, we must have the data in some form that we can understand. And to his credit, he turned to TC and said, more or less, give these guys what they need. So we got together and we decided to use the 990s as the basis, because essentially the IRS tells you where to put the dollar bills, and it isn't left up to the discretion of the institution. Now, this is the kind of information we've been having so far from the administration. These are the expenses from the 990s for 2010, and we have these damn pie charts. And I could put numbers on here, and I could put percentages, but it doesn't really tell me what I need to know. So I'm much more interested in, in how we got here. So these are the expenses, the total expenses as per the 990s, from 1995 up to 2010. You can see we've gone from about $28 million up to about $65 million. Now, if you look at a breakdown of these, it's a little messy, the slide. There's all the different categories at the bottom. But if you look, most of the categories are more or less drifting up a little bit. There's some that towards the 2010 start to hiccup a little bit and come up. And there's one big red line there, and the big red line is other salaries and wages. So this obviously looks like a driver from the point of view of our increased and burgeoning expenses. So if we pull that out, basically in the 990s they report other wages and salaries, that's the red line. They also report the compensation for officers, etc. So those are the presidents and the vice presidents. If you look at that red line, it's kind of interesting, because for the first 3 years, it's more or less a flat line at just over 12,500,000. And then it kicks off in 1998, and it kicks off and increases at about $1 million a year. There's a little hiccup in 2003, 2004 when we took some major cuts, but then it kicks off again and starts increasing at about the same rate. So I asked TC and her office to give me an analysis of what makes these numbers grow, especially what happened in 1998. And what happened in 1998, that's when Jay Aiselin decided that we should have a big professional development office and hired a whole bunch of people into the development office, and that kind of kicked off this growth. Being the union president, I was very interested to make sure it wasn't us. In other words, the CUFCT members, the full-time faculty members. Ignore the green line here. I basically put a whole bunch of slides I had together. The blue line is the total wages and salaries that were on the 990s. The red line is for the corresponding period. This is the accumulated base salaries for the full-time faculty. So basically the salaries for the full-time faculty has stayed around about $5 million for the whole period. Basically, once we get a couple of senior faculty members retire, we go back down under 5 million. So the growth hasn't been in the full-time faculty, at least. I'm pretty sure it's not in the other faculties as well. So I asked for a head count of the full-time employees who were non-academic. And this is what's happened since 1998. They start actually at 131. And they've grown up and down until they got to about 162. The distribution of these people are basically shown here. The first column is the actual net change from 1996 to 2010. And then they're broken out into 6 categories: administrative, clerical, technical, service maintenance, skilled craft, and service support. And if you look down at the bottom of the table, you can see the total 31 increase from 131 to 162, and how that 31 increase is distributed. We've got about 8 new administrators. We've gone down by 32 in the clerical secretarial, but most of those have been reclassified into the support service classification. But the key thing, I think, is looking at the 1990, the total gross, the first column. And if you look at the School of Art, School of Architecture, School of Engineering and Humanities, basically the net increase in bodies in those parts of the institution is 3. The growth has been in the non-academic functions. Now, the computer center technology has grown, so I would expect to see some growth there, but the other areas where we've had a lot of growth have been in development, in external affairs, buildings, business office, and the President's office itself. So basically what we've got is not only driving that salaries and wages pay increases, which typically in this place are between 2 and 3%, but we've also got more bodies. And one of the things that means is we're driving these costs up. This is a distribution of what costs for each of those different categories. You can see if the red line is the clerical secretarial, that's gone down. The orange line is the support services, which has gone up commensurately. But we've basically driven the administrative costs from about 2 million up to about 4 million in the period between 1998 and 2010. If you look at one of these down pie charts again, the compensation for 2010, about a third of the cost is faculty and instructional staff. The next biggest cost is administrative, and then there's the support service. At the top of the chart, the other, that represents miscellaneous stipends, it represents part-timers, and other payments for different things. So, one of the things with all these people comes benefits. So all these new bodies have a benefits package, as do some part-timers that are employed by the institution, and some of those are eligible for benefits as well. What we have here is the blue line is essentially our pension plan, which is a TIA-CREF 403K, and the red line is the employee benefits. Well, I'm an engineer, I like to look at analysis of graphs, and basically, if you look at this line up to about 2002, we're increasing at about $40,000 per year for the benefits for the institution. Then it kicks off, and we're increasing at just about $600,000 per year thereafter. So I asked them what happened in 2002. Here's a breakdown of the benefits for that period. Most things that are included in the benefits are flatlined, except for 3 what I call benefits drivers, and I've broken those out here. The orange line is the administration fees for the benefits plans. The light blue line, the upper one, is actual employee medical claims. Cost of medicine and medical treatment has gone up, and we've got more people subscribing to it because we've got more bodies in the institution. The other one is kind of interesting. The kind of middle line, the purple line, that's something called post-retirement medical current. And what that is in 2002, KPMG told us that we now need to start reporting this as an expense. And what this is an estimate of what Cooper Union might have to pay if retirees who have spouses or dependents who are not eligible to Medicare have a catastrophic health situation. So these are estimates of what we might have to pay. They are not dollar bills out of the door. So the big driver for medical, for the benefits is the medical expenses. That's gone from about 2 million to about 4.5 million. But this post-retirement medical current has gone from 0 at the beginning of 2002 up to about $2 million. It's a big part of our expenses as they are reported. There are other sums within the benefits that are along the same lines. For example, there's an accrual for vacation days that have not been taken. Just in case people leave, then they'll have to be paid for those vacation days. So those are two big drivers for where our costs are going up. That's salaries, wages, and benefits. And a lot of that is because of a growing institution, primarily not in the academic sphere. There were other things on the expenses that were weird, things with weird peaks. I don't know whether you can see the yellow line. but that was other professional fees jumping up to $1 million every now and then. If you look at general expenses, suddenly we came to 2009 and we stopped using the telephone, renting equipment, doing all sorts of stuff, but we've spent a lot on supplies, huge amount on supplies, and we still spend it. So what was this? Well, I don't know if you know Milton in TC's office. Excuse me a second. But Milton couldn't understand this, but was delighted by the challenge. And what he decided to do was add all the kind of little expenses together. And he came out with this chart. I'm afraid I don't have the data, so I just photocopied his chart. But it looks very much more reasonable. It's going up from about 500,000 to about 2.5 million. And what it turns out is that people who fill in the 990s over in the business office, depending on who it is from year to year, they put the dollar bills in different slots, depending on what's convenient. Like, for example, it looks like supplies is very convenient some years. So everything's gone into there, including postage. So these accounts, these 990s, are audited by our external auditors, KPMG. So I do not have a lot of confidence in the audited accounts. Moving on to a couple of other things. This is interesting because this is the interest. Basically, our interest on the 990s was about $1.5 million for old debts. In 2006, we took up the loan and we were able to capitalize some of the interest that was associated with that loan because we were still building the building and we weren't in occupancy yet. In 2009, it took off and we were hit with just over $10 million a year. That will be with us for the life of the loan, and we have not yet started repaying the loan. The final one I want to talk about is depreciation. Depreciation for equipment, buildings, etc. was hovering around about $3 million for most of the time until we took the new building on. And then in 2009, it jumped up to just over $6 million, about $6.5 million. Now this is depreciation, and depreciation again is not dollar bills out of the door. It's an accounting practice. It's not a bad accounting practice. It's a little misleading for a not-for-profit like Cooper, but basically this $6.5 million will appear on our expenses for at least 30 years, which is the projected life of the building. As a consequence, if you look at that $65 million that I put up originally, about $9 million of it at the moment is not dollar bills out of the door. We are currently asking TC to help us with an analysis on the revenue side. And the other thing we've asked specifically, especially because Mark always refers to it as an investment, is we've asked for a breakdown of the fundraising costs versus the funds raised to see what kind of breakdown we've got there. My concern is I think revenue raising is a really, really good thing to do, and we should do it without tuition, but we should do it in a way that we are in control. There is a revenues task force, which is terrific. I've had a word with my dean the other day, and there is now apparently an expenses task force. For the expenses task force, they've decided that no one who is a member of a union at the Cooper Union will be allowed to sit on that task force, which is a little bit funny to me, because the one place that Cooper Union is absolutely in control of its finances is what it pays the unions, because they nickel and dime us to death through about 2 years of negotiation every 3 years. And they know exactly what we're going to cost this year, they know what we're going to cost next year and the year after. It's all the other stuff that is out of control. And frankly, putting all the other stuff and the people associated with it, putting that personnel in control of looking at the expenses and deciding where we need to cut just doesn't sound right to me. Thank you.
In your professional opinion, do you want a lean ship here at the Cooper Union?
Oh, very lean. Beyond lean. I mean, basically, most people I speak to, whether they're staff or...
I'm talking about just the faculty.
No, whether they're staff or faculty, some administrators, everybody tells me that on Sunday night, their stomachs have flip-flops, they don't sleep, and then they come into school on Monday because it's a really stressful place to work. It's a wonderful place to work, but it's also very stressful. because of some of these issues. Thank you. Development here. Now, I'm not trying to knock development, but I think culturally the institution changed when we decided to go to the big bad development office. It was previously a much smaller operation. It was run by Marilyn. And when I arrived at Cooper in 1994, within 2 weeks, the representative who represented engineering came over to see me, and we continued then thereafter to work very, very closely together on raising grants and raising money for different programs that I had, etc. So basically, between 1994 and about 1998, we managed to raise about $1 million. Sometimes running up to Union Square with big boxes to get them into FedEx before we missed the deadline to get them to the funding agency. Things changed when we decided to go to the big, more normal, not-for-profit development office. Culturally, things changed. We had a new vice president who came in to run it, and she spent the first 3 months of her office basically outfitting her office with the most expensive furniture you could possibly think of. Things since then have just got a little bit weird. So I'm sitting in my office over now in 41 Cooper Square, but previously in 51 Astor Place. And apart from Michael Gardner, who sees me occasionally on a particular issue for a program that I still run, no one from development office has been in my office for at least 8 years. I haven't seen a soul. So there's a problem with the way we're running some of these things, and I think we need to address some of these systemic issues, I think.